You know what they say, strike while the iron is hot. That's the policy, isn't it? So today we're talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets and some rumors that had been presenting themselves, not even really rumors, just ideas, just suggestions, and as a result I thought it would be really interesting to have some conversations about these ideas on the YouTube channel here, because on the recent edition of Spectors Hockey from yesterday, Saturday, April 24th, what we had in the rumor mill was a very deep and just overall encapsulating segment done for John Tortorella and his squad over here. So what Lyle Richardson does, the writer of Spectors Hockey, he goes over some different mailbags that Aaron Portzline writes on The Athletic, talking about Max Domi, Patrick Laine, John Tortorella, and these are some topics that we have already discussed before. Domi as to whether or not he would want to be traded or be in the capacity of being traded, whether or not Tortorella is going to leave, and whether or not Patrick Laine is in a spot where he might be on the move. Actually, we haven't made a video about that yet. The idea of a Patrick Laine falling out in Columbus, which would result in him getting traded elsewhere or signing elsewhere, that's actually a video I don't think we've talked about yet, so I guess we have to go ahead and do that soon. But towards the end of the Spectors Hockey article, there indeed is another discussion on one of the other guys whom we actually haven't discussed before in this kind of detail. In fact, we made one video about him as to whether or not he would actually be involved in a Patrick Laine trade, oddly enough, now they're teammates, and the guy's name is Zach Werenski. So, Zach Werenski is our topic here today. He is a guy who has been in the ballpark of being one of the better younger defensemen in the entire NHL the past few seasons. He's been noted primarily for his smooth skating, his offensive production, all these things that made him such a valuable player for the Michigan Wolverines in the 2 seasons he spent over there as a point-per-game guy. He made his debut very well known with the Blue Jackets in 2016-17, where he had 47 points in 78 games played, which happens to be his career high. No big deal about that, but he would have outproduced it last season in 2020 had the season not been shut down. He also is one of the guys who scores a whole bunch of goals. He had 20 goals that year, which is absolutely crazy for a defenseman, especially one who at the time was only 22 years old. This season, though, he's been sidelined for the remainder of the year, which is a big deal because he actually has been one of the better offensive producers, 20 points in 35 games played for the Blue Jackets. Obviously, as a blue liner, that is awesome. It's second to Seth Jones, but in a significantly fewer amount of games played, so you can see how the value aligns there. Werenski is signed until 2022, where he's making $5 million as an AAV. That will have to be renegotiated in a year, because 2022 is next year, which is, yeah, that's crazy to believe, man. 2022 in a year? Yikes. Well, what we have ourselves in the recent Spectors Hockey article is a mailbag highlighted by Lyle Richardson that is written by Aaron Portzline. This is the mailbag right here. It's on The Athletic. The Blue Jackets mailbag part 2, Tortorella's fate, finding a center, and the draft lottery. I will leave a link in the description to this piece. It was published just a few days ago. If you have The Athletic, you can go ahead and read that. But if you don't have The Athletic, you can just go over to Spectors Hockey and read the summary instead. In this mailbag, Aaron Portzline suggests the Jackets might have to package a defenseman, and Zach Werenski might be that guy, in order to acquire a number 1 center in the trade market. Though they shouldn't do that unless they know what Jones intends to do. Because Seth Jones was the other guy on the Blue Jackets who is quite a good defenseman. I mean, some Blue Jackets fans will debate how good he has been this season, but Seth Jones is also expiring in 2022, as is Werenski, so we'll see what exactly these guys are planning to do, but unless they know whether or not Jones intends to stay or go, Portzline is suggesting that the Blue Jackets might have to package Werenski in order to acquire a number 1 center. Free agent options include Edmonton's Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Montreal's Phillip Danault, but the former is really a second-line guy, and the latter is a middle 6 forward. So, this idea goes over a hypothetical Zach Werenski trade with the intention of boosting the center core. If you trade Zach Werenski, what you're getting is a number 1 guy. And as we discussed, the guys that we spoke about as free agent targets, Nugent-Hopkins and Danault, they're not really number 1 guys, so going out there and trading a Werenski for these two, in any respect, would be quite a dumb move. That's not what we're suggesting here, we're just using these in separate ideas. But for Zach Werenski to go out there and be traded for a center, It ultimately boils down to the team specifically, because when it comes to different NHL teams that have number one center quality guys, I think it's mostly the case you would find with these teams that their number one center quality guy would be a little bit of an untouchable asset. And sure, Zach Werenski is a very valuable piece in his own right. He's still 23 years old. His best days are ahead of him, and he could be one of the best offensive defensemen in the NHL this generation, I guess. And I said one of the best, not the best. One of. Very big distinction there. This is a very valuable piece, and of course, when it comes to the dilemma as to whether or not a team would bother keeping an asset like a Jack Eichel, or bother keeping an asset like an Alex Turcotte, or a Gabe Vilardi, or a Dylan Larkin, or whoever, over a trade acquisition like a Zach Werenski, things get really muddy depending on who you ask. Is a number one defender as good as a number one center? Well, some people would say yes, other people would say no. So it really depends in that space for Zach Werenski, but when you're talking about trading this guy potentially, I think the only realistic way you even consider a Zach Werenski trade is if one of these Eichel-like assets, or somebody just below Eichel's tier, becomes suddenly openly available to you on the market. Because you're not going to trade away a Zach Werenski for somebody on the caliber of a Phillip Danault. Let's say Danault re-signs with Montreal and you trade for Danault. You're not going to give them Werenski. That's really not going to work out for your favor. But when it comes to the other guys, the number one elites, the first-line centers on any one of these NHL teams, yeah, I think there's a little bit more of an argument you have to make there that says that a Zach Werenski would be a suitable return in some respect. Of course, though, money has to work out as well. Werenski doesn't have cost certainty after 2022, so that is somewhat of a negative factor to his overall profile as a player. But hey, even if you decide to keep Zach Werenski and go after a center in free agency, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins could be an option, but he is not a number one center. Who knows if he could be, though? I mean, when you're drafted first overall, nobody really expects you to be a number two guy, right? So who knows if maybe Ryan Nugent-Hopkins going over to Columbus and giving him the opportunity to play with a Patrick Laine would be the be-all and end-all in solidifying his status as a number one guy. We know, though, that Nugent-Hopkins is like 28 now, so he's really not on the right side of 25 when it comes to developing into a number one center. Who knows, though? I mean, anything's possible when you're a guy who's been as good as he has been in the past. 61 points in 65 games last year, a point per game guy the previous year, 2 points a game in the bubble. Crazy right there. This year, though, 29 points, 41 games played, just at 3 points every 4 games, so pretty good, honestly, for a guy playing on a second-line role with the Edmonton Oilers behind Connor McDavid. But obviously, when it comes to these free agents, him and Phillip Danault included, Danault is the interesting one because he is a very capable, underrated two-way forward who can do very good defensive things at both ends of the ice. It's just, he doesn't really produce. Danault, who is 28 years old as well, was kind of the number one center for Montreal the past few seasons, and if you take a look at the production right here, sure, you could say a lot of this has to do with the fact that he's not really playing with elite, talented, play-driving wingers, but he boasts a profile that says that he still is a capable guy who can be a very effective middle six caliber, penalty killing, second power play kind of guy. It's just, do you want a player like Phillip Danault who is going to demand a boatload of money, maybe something over $6 million because you're a free agent and free agents always get extra payment up front? Do you want this guy as your first line center? I think we've seen in Montreal the previous few years that, hey, even though he can be capable, is he a number one? Is he an undisputed number one center that a Zach Werenski kind of asset could get you if you wanted to trade Werenski? No, he's probably not. So if you're saying to yourself, okay, we have a choice between trading Werenski for Eichel, or we can just sign Phillip Danault in the offseason instead, if you really want a number one center, you might have to trade that Zach Werenski. Or maybe even that Seth Jones, who knows? The article was talking about Werenski, so that's why we're talking about it here. But yeah, there are many options to go here with the Blue Jackets, and the reason why I decided to make this video specifically is because, obviously, the two Canadian guys, Nugent-Hopkins and Danault, the two Canadian team guys, I should have said instead, they're mentioned in the article, so I thought it would be interesting to incorporate that into this conversation here. And also the fact that the Blue Jackets are just so interesting, I guess. We make so many videos about Columbus that it's almost like they're kind of one of the favorites on this channel when it comes to views and discussion and people sharing their own opinions, because All this stuff with Dubois and Laine and Tortorella and Domi especially, yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So talk to me in the comments what you thought about this idea over here. Werenski, trading, Danault, Nugent-Hopkins, who knows? Let me know in the comments what you think. If you enjoyed this Trolls 99. And bye.